Burundi's main opposition party has filed a case in the country's constitutional court challenging last week's presidential election results, claiming there is evidence of fraud. Burundi's election commission said on Monday the governing party candidate, retired General Evariste Ndayishimiye, had won the presidential election with 69% of the vote. It added that candidate Agathon Rwasa got 24% of the vote and the election was peaceful. While the East African Community, a regional body, gave the election a clean bill of health on Tuesday, the Conference of Bishops of Burundi criticized the conduct during the polling, saying observers from some parties had been chased from polling stations. Moses Harimana is a Burundian journalist. He joins us now via Skype from Bujumbura. Moses, a very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good evening.
So what is the latest with regards to the opposition, contesting the election results?
Well, we saw that Agathon Rwasa, the Burundi's leading opposition leader, deposited some of the evidences and facts that he says that the elections were rigged, and he posted some proofs about the documents which showed that there were some rigging in the elections. It says that most of the people also during the polling station when they were casting their votes, people were intimidated, and they also. I pointed out about the issues regarding about some people who voted on behalf of others who had already died even a long time ago. So he said that the votes were rigged, and even most of his members who were at the polling station couldn't access the polling stations during the vote counting. So he said that he doesn't consider to say that he was defeated during the elections.
Well, did the election commission, pick up any errors? Because the opposition party says there were glaring and appalling errors in the polling station. So did the election commission pick up on these?
Yes, recently we saw that there was a rectifying about the figures, which one of the provinces where the electoral commission said it had just got a little bit of mistake in the counting of those votes, but he said it's rectified. But again, as a whole election and the process and the results of the preliminary result, the electoral commission says that everything was right now, and that it was done in a peaceful way, and it was done in a transparent way. So the electoral commission said that the Catholic Church, remember that the Catholic Church has also released a statement saying that the elections were not conducted in a free and fair and also in democratic way. There were concerns over the eligibility of some people who voted on behalf of refugees, others voted twice, So there were a lot of irregularities, but the Electoral Commission said that the Catholic Church observers had no that experience of observing the elections, so they just dismissed the accusation by the Catholic Church.
Moses, there's also the controversy over the elections being held during the coronavirus pandemic, which critics said posed a huge health risk. And there are also reports preceding the election, reports of political violence and the torture and arrest of political activists who are in opposition to the ruling party. And, there are also some reports of murder of some of these activists. So does that make the election credible? And what is it that the opposition movement will take now in terms of making sure that their voices are heard?
Actually, the leading opposition leader, Agathon Rwasa, has stated it as he went to the constitutional court in order to contest for the electoral result. And he said if he doesn't get a positive feedback from the constitutional court, he will go to the African court. That's what he said. But however, we have seen the reports as the opposition members have just been saying that they have been harassed, they have been tortured, they have been arrested. The leading opposition leader, CNL, that is led by Agathon Rwasa, said more than 300 supporters were arrested prior to the elections during the campaign. And we saw the confrontations between the supporters of the ruling party and the opposition members. So all these things come out before the elections. And you hinted about the coronavirus just 30 minutes before right now is that the Ministry of Health has just declared 21 more cases of COVID-19 related cases, which brings to the total number of 63 coronavirus cases in Burundi. So it is something that the government has been criticized to move on with elections and the campaigns during this pandemic. But again, the government said that it was something that Burundi was looking forward in order to bring peace and stability in the country.
Well, the East African Community, which is a regional body, gave the elections a clean bill of health, picking absolutely no irregularities at all, while the Council or the Conference of Bishops of Burundi criticized the conduct during the polling. So who are these? Who is the Conference of Bishops, and just how influential are they in Burundian politics?
You remember this Catholic Church has been playing a great role in politics in Burundi, even in 2015. When President Pierre Nkurunziza bid for a third term in the office, they warned the president. They released statements as warning for the run of another term, which could cause a bloodshed. And we saw what happened. So the Catholic Church are very influential in the Burundian politics because almost let's say like 75% of the Burundians are from the Catholic. So they are more, they play the biggest role in Burundian politics, and that's why we have seen them taking part even in observing missions during the electoral process. So they have the big role they play in the Burundian politics, to say that.
So why didn't you see international observer missions to observe these elections?
Yes, actual observer missions, we understand that Burundi and the international community, the relation has deteriorated since 2015. And with the EU and also the African Union, we didn't see the deployment of the observer mission, even the intent to apply, because of possibly Burundi was saying that it is organizing its own elections and it will observe its own elections. But the East African community had applied to observe the Burundi elections. But again, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it came by where Burundi had imposed the observers. They have to go to the 14-day quarantine in order to come into the country, which would have been late for them to observe the elections. So that's why we didn't see the observer missions from the EAC. But the EAC was the only observer mission which was expected to come from outside the country in Burundi. But again, the Burundi government said 9 countries had applied to the Electoral Commission so that they can observe through their embassies. And we saw some of the ambassadors that they took that part and they went on to deploy some members to observe in some of the polling stations.
So as a result of what's happened, do you get a sense that Burundians will see this as a democratic transfer of power?
Well, it's a mixed reaction. It's a mixed reaction because the opposition members are not happy about the result. They say these votes were rigged, and they went to the Constitutional Court. But again, the ruling party members also say that yes, this was it was peaceful and transparent. So it's a win and it's a democratic way towards the peace and stability in the country. And they say that they regard now as the president, Pierre Nkurunziza, they regard him as a national hero for democracy because he is like the first president of Burundi to step down democratically and peacefully since the country gained its independence in 1962. But this doesn't rule out the opposition members who also have a big number who think that the elections were rigged and they need justice.
All right, Moses, thank you so much for joining us. Much appreciated. That was Moses Havriarimana, a Burundian journalist. He joined us via Skype from Bujumbura. And to take a quick break, we'll have more in a moment.
Politics.